I often have this conversation with people when they're kind of talking down on CBDCs and programmability and things like that. And you have to understand, if money is coming from the government, that money has to be programmed, right? You're not going to be able to use that money that you need for food stamps or rent or your children. You're not going to be able to go out and spend that on weed or a gun or something like that, right? So it has to be programmable, right?
Well, ideally, right? And then it's used for the purpose that it was intended, instead of being misappropriated. So, yeah, and here's the other caveat that I think a lot of people miss. Powell has discussed that there will be other currencies that are pegged to the US dollar that are stable coins outside of just the CBDC. So you'll have options, right? Just like you have with credit cards right now, right? You might get certain benefits from using this credit card versus that credit card. And that's what this brings to currency that doesn't currently exist. So your bank may offer a certain type of backing that you prefer versus a different bank, or a certain type of benefit that you'll use or get from spending their currency versus somebody else's. And there's a lot of regulation that goes around the stable coins, right? But again, I just want to make that delineation for people between stable coins and CBDCs. I think they will coexist, and one will be used, again, for what you said, government money that's given to the population under UBI or other circumstances. And then the other you will go out and make and be able to spend freely. I don't think that there will be constraints around the currency that you earn, just what's given.
Yeah, and you actually brought up something interesting there, UBI, right? And I said UBI is coming last year. I say the UK and Canada are probably the first places that you're going to see UBI, and sure enough, here you go. But, you know, a lot of people, that's how you get people on the new system, right? Stimulus money. You need to, you know, that's what governments are going to do, right? They're going to roll out their CBDCs and they're going to say, hey, we're going to give you an extra $1,000 a month, but you need to go ahead and register on this app. And people will do it, right? Because, you know, a good majority of people are living paycheck to paycheck, and that $1,000 could be, you know, meals for 2 weeks for their family, and that's really important. But I do think that's how they're going to get a lot of us to go on to some of these, you know, systems, and you know, governments are going to do what government's going to do. But, you know, we do need to have an open discussion on what programmability looks like, and just to make sure that our privacy is not, you know, messed with, or you get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, well, I've had this discussion with other individuals. I think that these will all be sovereign currencies, and each one of them have cultural norms, right? And so people are fearful that we will have a similar CBDC to China and these social credit scores and all these other things that have been implemented with their system. But that's their cultural norms that exist there within their country. I don't think it's going to leave and just bleed into ours, even though they can be used in that way. I don't think the regulation and the people here in the U.S. will allow it to happen. So just my 2 cents. And, you know, hopefully I'm right. If I'm wrong, that's not good.
Yeah. All right. Here's the $1 million question. Ripple versus SEC. When do you think the judge is going to grace us with her decision, right? We've been, it's 120 days almost since, you know, the last thing happened in court. We're waiting. What do you think?
Man.
Hard to say, right?
It's complete speculation, right? I have no insider information. I have nothing. Yeah. Right. This is a complete guess, but I'm going to play the speculation game because I enjoy it as much as everybody else. I've thought for a long time that there would be an event that would transpire that would trigger them to rush things through, as you mentioned before, right? I don't know what that is, but I think they're holding off until that happens. And I don't think we're going to see anything until whatever that event happens. And then they will rush everything through all at the same time. The regulation around the space, the case will settle. It'll be interesting to see if XRP has clarity and nothing else does for a period of time, because I think there would be a significant inflow of liquidity to that asset in particular from other assets, especially from institutions. Yep. Maybe that's what drives the price up and allows things to function at the level that needs to happen. And so that's my speculation. Gotcha. I'm not going to put a time frame on it. Yes, when I was in Vegas, Deaton stated that, you know, the judge had until September 29th, I think was the last day that she could issue summary judgment without any implications from Congress. She'd never let it go that far before. Yeah. So I'm confident that we'll see it before then, right? If I was going to put a constraint on it, I would say before October. Yeah. And the other reason I'm confident in that is that when I spoke to David Schwartz at Consensus, he mentioned that the automated market maker should be, and this is just his guesstimate, live by October. So coincidentally, those two things kind of line up.
Yep.
We also had Brad state that things would transpire and end within the first single-digit months of this year. Well, so September is the last single-digit month before October. So we're July 6th when we're recording this.
Yep.
So we got
4 months.
Maximum of 90 days, maybe a little less than 90 days.
The countdown is on. I feel like with each passing day, we get a little bit closer. And I do feel like the judge has kind of made up her mind, right? And I'm sure maybe her decision's already there. But yeah, there's probably something in the background that we have no idea what's going on. And maybe she's holding off for some of those reasons. But thanks for sharing your perspective on that. Did you want to touch on what you're doing with XDC? Because I think that's really interesting. And XDC is by far my second favorite project behind XRP. So, what you doing with XDC and nodes, my friend? Because it's really important.
Yeah, I'd love to. So on that topic, I will be on XDC's event in Austin on August 26th. I'm a speaker there with them. I think that Lloyd and his team are going to put on a fantastic show. So if you hadn't bought your tickets, I would definitely do it. I think that event's going to be similar to XRP Vegas in the amount of people that are there and the atmosphere and things that go on. So I'm excited for that. And we'll also we applied for the grant from XDC through the hackathon at Consensus. We didn't have a working MVP at that point. And so we should by this one when they put it on. And what that's for is the ability to, so we deal with SPVs through the mastermind. 506Bs, which are Reg D funds, they're completely legal within the eyes of the SEC, as long as you meet the criteria that I mentioned before as the sophisticated investor. So with that, there's not been anybody up to this point that's been able to aggregate XDC and then delegate that through that vehicle to a master node to be able to earn yield on that asset. And so that's what we're looking to do. We're looking to be able to create a way that allows the average person, as long as they meet that sophisticated investor requirement, delegate their XDC through an SPV into a fund that uses that XDC to generate an income that disperses that back out to the individuals that delegated the original amount, right? So working through all the caveats that exist there and the regulation around that has been intensive, but I think we've got it figured out. And so now it's just creating the smart contract protocol and lining up the last few partnerships to be able to facilitate that. But yeah, I'm excited to be able to bring that to market because I think there's a lot of other instances where that's applicable, including like VeChain. You get V4 for holding VeChain, but if you delegate that through one of their nodes, there's a significantly higher yield that you get. You have to have 1 million VeChain to be able to do that. Well, at this point, it's kind of capital intensive to be able to get that much VeChain. Same thing with XDC, even though it's 4 cents, if you're looking for 10 million of them, you got to have $400,000 to delegate and run your own master node. And then you may not even have the technical prowess to be able to stand up a master node and be able to participate on the network. So we have two nodes on the network right now that are on standby, that are very secure and just need funding. And so that's what we're working to do. And then once we've pioneered that model, we should be able to scale that to other networks as well.
I'm not a financial expert, but owning an XDC node would probably set you up for life, in my personal opinion. Like I said, I don't have a fancy degree, but 10 million XDC is definitely going to be in the trillions of market cap over the next 5 to 10 years, right? With the TradeFi industry and all of that stuff happening with NGO and the traceability and trackability of shipping supplies and things like that.
There's a lot of really cool things being built on that network that will bring value to it, right? And so that's what increases the value of the token, is the value that's moving across the network. It's the protocol that has the value, not necessarily the token. But yeah, if you're able to participate in a piece of that, I think you're right. I know a lot of these guys at XDC Foundation and people that got in early, and they've done very well up to this point, and I think they will continue to do so as things progress.
No, man, that's great. And you got on XRP, now you have on XCC. I think we need to create on XLM, right? That's the last one, right? Or on Quant. We could create new communities there. But no, man, that's fantastic. I wanted to ask you this because, there are people that I kind of jumping back to XRP because it is my favorite topic, and a lot of people on this channel, like hearing about it. So do you think we would come to a place where banks and central banks would come together and say, hey, we need this asset at a higher, more stable value. Do you think banks would come together and say, hey, we're going to set the price at X, Y, and Z, 4 or 5 digits? That way they could facilitate all of this cross-border trade and settling of, like the DTCC and things like that. Do you think that's a possibility, or do you think, that's probably not in the horizon?
I think that will be a byproduct of volume on the network. And so it's interesting. So in the past, people have revalued things to back currencies, right? So gold, obviously, people are going to understand that one. Even though it still sits at like 42 and change on the Fed's balance sheet, obviously it's trading on the public market significantly higher than that. But they revalued gold from, I think it was $20 to $35, 6 months after they collected it all from the U.S. citizens in 1933 and made it illegal to own outside of heirlooms. And then it progressively moved up since then until Nixon removed us from the gold standard on August 15th, 1971.
Yep.
So that's kind of a concept that a lot of people have in their mind, is there would be this price set, but there's never been an asset that you could just use that would increase the value, right? So I think that's probably the context or the pretense in which allows the asset to aggregate the value that people want it to be. And then after it has enough volume on the network, the price stability or price set that people talk about will inherently happen. The more value that moves across the network, the more the asset will have to be in order to facilitate that, as well as you'll just have less volatility, right? So if you look at any of the indexes, the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ, they have trillions of dollars in market cap. And so you have to have significant sell-offs in order to move the price one direction or the other. And then when it does move, it's a big move if it's like 2% in one day.
Yeah.
So just think about it that way. The more value or market cap that an asset has, the more stable the price is going to be. But you still need that flexibility in the price to be able to facilitate more volume over time. So I don't think there'll ever be a fixed price for XRP or any one of these tokens that actually facilitates the movement of value in these protocols.
Gotcha.